And so the research kind of shows that that drug, kind of like high doses of alcohol, caused neurosyndromes that we just forget about. We don't want to demoralize people. Those people do well in our long-term programs because they're habilitation programs. They teach them how to live again, like the rules of organized, civilized life.
Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
So hello, welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're new here, I'm your host, Dr. Jason Powers, with a co-host, George Joseph. In each episode, we cover a variety of topics in the recovery space, including positive psychology, best practices for a successful recovery journey, and sometimes we have outstanding mentors in the field. Today, we have Dr. Mark Gold, and if I were to start listing off his achievements, we would still be here in about 3 years. Just kind of realize that this guy is one of the most cited, researchers on the planet in the addiction space. And he's done things to cement the neuroanatomy of addictive processes, ranging from the opioid system, the way it works on the brain, cocaine. He's helped destigmatize and improve treatment outcomes. The guy is amazing. I would take whatever he says to the bank. Mark, welcome.
Thank you both. You guys are role models for me too. Well, I actually started a fellowship. You guys know this, 20 years before ASAM had a fellowship. I predate ASAM. So I started to train doctors in a kind of a mentorship model in the late 1970s. And, that it could be somebody that went into research like Jean-Luc Cadet, who was an addiction psychiatrist researcher, but also clinicians like Norman Miller, who was the first editor of the ASAM textbooks, went through my fellowship. And, then when I came to the University of Florida in 1990, I started a fellowship, and there was no ASAM certification. It was basically mentoring with Ken Thompson and me. And then, we had one fellow that lasted for 5 years, and now is a full professor running the program there.
Scotty?
He was a full 5-year fellowship, I think.
Oh my God. Well, he needed it.
he learned a lot, but yeah, he kept saying, well, I don't know, why don't I learn a little bit about children and adolescence? And well, thanks, George. Visiting you and seeing what you do, and what I do is try to help people like you, just provide a structure and framework that is a little different because it's based on what I call translational research. Usually in my case, that means from rats to non-human primates to people. But as I got older, I probably didn't invent as much, but I've understood things better. So when I first started, I said, well, I'll figure out what opioids do in the brain. Well, that was a challenge, but actually we did that. And then I got a little older and I said, I'm going to figure out if cocaine's addicting. Kind of did that. And then I said, I'm going to figure out how that happens, and how does a high happen. And really, the side effect of that was Nora Volkov, current director of NIDA, was at a dopamine hypothesis lecture that I gave at NYU. and she ended up like proving me right. So she did all the hard work. I just had like a theory of this. It's like, and I feel the same way about my sugar work. You know, I was at Princeton with
Mm-hmm.
Bart Hubble, and we showed that animals will self-administer sugar, and we wrote a sugar is addicting thing, and lo and behold, Nicole Lavina and Ashley Gearhart proved that to be the case, and everybody goes like, "Oh wow!" But honestly, it's the students that make your work. The same in impaired health professional research. We had a program. We trained lots and lots of doctors. Jason knows that when I left UF, we had trained about 90 physicians who went into the practice of addiction medicine. So this 10 years ago, I ended at UF. So there's a lot of doctors. We had a big program, if not one of the biggest programs. Luckily, one of the doctors we trained, Brian Furline, became the head of Yale's program, which now turns out to be the largest in the United States, with 22 to 25 addiction psychiatrists a year coming out of there.
Nice.
And Scott is going to win like an ASAM award for training. So I mean, think about it. Like mentees they're like better than children in a way, because you can actually divorce yourself from mentees, but they get like they can carry on the whole work.
Yeah.
So and I just feel like that. I have a lecture that I once gave on just my mentees, and it was a blast. Like I basically had pictures of them all and what their contributions were, and I had 40 slides.
Wow.
Like 40, like people you don't even think of. So Kevin Sabet for like smart approaches with Patrick Kennedy and destigmatization and parity, Menti. I mean, like people like really. Anyway, I'm a proud father or mentor, and
I call you the Godfather of addiction medicine. You're the Godfather.
George, his first peer-reviewed paper was published when I was 2.
in our field, it kind of will show you how I think. So I'm in medical school, and people are taking stimulants to study, and they're telling people that it's helping them learn. So I actually did the experiments that proved that it did not improve your memory. And there was such a thing as called state dependency of memory, meaning that you learn with the state that you learn it in is maximized to this for recall to this if it's the exact same state at recall. So if you learn something, it's also why it is you can't remember everything about being an addict or an alcoholic, because it's locked in a state that you can really only fully appreciate and access if you slip. Childbirth.
Some things are better left in the past.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
you don't have to remember everything.
It's the same as my early analogy was to childbirth. Like if women actually remembered childbirth, they'd never have another baby. Luckily, the state of delivering a baby is so unique that the memories for that state are actually locked in a very tight package. They'll only access it as they start in labor again. And then they go, oh my God, I can't believe I did this again. What am I, stupid?
Well, Doc, your latest paper on the fourth wave, I think you call it. Can you tell us more about that? And then I have a question about fentanyl poisoning versus overdose.
Okay.
The new terminology people are using.
Yeah. So let's start on the waves. So like, being at the University of Florida, we had one kind of a wave in the football games. Jason may have observed that. Exactly. So, but here you had like what started the opioid crisis. So it started with prescription opioid, overprescribing, no standard of practice, and so forth. So, but that was quickly replaced by heroin, second wave, quickly replaced by fentanyl. And I had one paper a while ago, I can't remember how long ago, but people even buying heroin now get mostly fentanyl. So that was the third wave. And then the fourth wave kind of snuck up on everybody, which is the data looked like methamphetamine deaths were skyrocketing, which they were, but it turned out it was fentanyl plus methamphetamine. And the same for cocaine deaths. So rather than in your day or my day, George, like people died of cocaine overdoses, which is just cocaine. They'd have hyperthermia, high temperature, have a heart attack or stroke, and die. Now it's mostly the cocaine deaths are cocaine plus fentanyl. So really, it's a speedball epidemic, similar to what my teachers wrote and taught me in 78. So when somebody said this was Harry Hartunian said this was a really great paper of mine, an old friend who was the medical director of Betty Ford in the day. And I said, it was written by David Musto, the father of addiction history, and Herb Kleber. Both of them were my Yale mentors. They wrote it in 1977, and I just dusted it off and brought it up to date, and it was the same basic thing. So if you're ever interested in how these waves happen, Musto's book, The American Disease, kind of talked about it. It's the classic when people who take the history of drug abuse almost always read it. He's now deceased, and Kleber also. So I think the distinction this is a complicated question, and our group showed, for example, that everybody says, well, fentanyl is X times more potent than heroin. That's true. However, in animal studies, what we showed was that fentanyl's effect on the pleasure systems is so profound that when it's discontinued, the pleasure systems are still dysfunctional. The person is dysphoric, anhedonic, and has unease, even if they don't have the heroin-like withdrawal symptoms anymore. So there's a toxicity about fentanyl that has been underplayed. In my new blog, I'm not to pre-announce this, I reviewed some drugs have effects in the brain that are not always easily reversible. So you might think this through in your own clinical work. Like if somebody stops taking an antidepressant, they might have a withdrawal syndrome, but they don't have persistent neurocognitive abnormalities. They don't have neurological deficits in their brain that you can identify. But if someone is on a meth binge and stop, they actually look like someone who's had a concussion. And so the research kind of shows that drug, kind of like high doses of alcohol, cause neurosyndromes that we just forget about. We don't want to demoralize people, so we just kind of forget about it. But really, those people do well in our long-term programs because they're habilitation programs. They teach them how to live again, like the rules of organized, civilized life, the big book, like how to live. So it's really restructuring and giving them guidelines that they've lost. I think that fentanyl all by itself is a different drug and has been trivialized by linking it to heroin, which is, yes, so much weaker, but also has it seemed to me, a purer effect on the brain than fentanyl. So I'd liken that to cocaine has similar effects to methamphetamine, but cocaine is much less neurotoxic and much more likely to show reversal and without structural brain defects. I think I've thought a lot about the hot tub poisoning and more like what people call like poisonings. So you'd say like in a hot tub, somebody who's self-administering ketamine and has many times the lethal dose in their body, that's an overdose of ketamine. All the other things in there are questions. Like in the body at the same time was buprenorphine, it seems, because the person might be on maintenance treatment for an OUD. It's a wonderment. Like, has ketamine been tested in people on the MAT, Suboxone, or on methadone? I don't think so. And they have this kind of thing happen all the time. Somebody's taking fentanyl, like they might think it was heroin, but it's fentanyl. Our group, and I can send you this paper. It's a really funny little paper that we got a grant to do. We looked at the drugs as they are put together and enter the United States in little packages and so forth. And the process of adulteration includes purposeful adulteration, accidental because they use the same non-sterile environment, like the same table has drugs on it and it just adds into it. But most recently, they've been adding like discarded pharma medicines to add bulk and effects. So like this is I shouldn't even say this, but a peculiar, unanticipated consequence of these waves is in the first wave, people got prescription opioids, meaning they're pure, they're from the pharma, and they even had on them, like if you think about OxyContins, people were buying them per milligram, like the dose was stamped on them.
Yeah.
Well, now you got somebody making them somewhere. They're adulterated. They have other things in them, and the doses are all random. And so someone said to me, like, why don't they just, why doesn't the DEA just stop it from coming in? And you go like, do you realize they put them in an envelope and send them through the U.S. mail from Russia or India or Mexico? They don't need to do very much because the amount is so small. Our paper showed that the typical illicit drug is adulterated with other drugs, fillers, sugars, medicines, and is never close to what the person thinks.
Yeah, it's so scary. I mean, obviously the overdose, poisoning, however you want to look at it, but I've never seen where dealers are killing their clients. I mean, it's back in the cocaine days, you wouldn't lose many clients. They would come back for more. These guys are killing them left and right, which is so scary for everybody.
Yeah. So in New Haven, we always used to joke that in the 70s that the drugs came from Southeast Asia and oftentimes through organized crime. And like you just said, George, these were customers. They didn't want them to die. But nowadays, that's not the case. It's a mom and pop thing. You can find out how to make drugs on the internet, and it's not that complicated. And also the nature of the user has changed. My friend and mentee, Brian Ferlin at Yale, who I mentioned, there was one time that CNN covered this mass overdose event in the Yale Green. It was like 100, you may have seen this, 120 people overdosed at once. And so he went out there and they were trying to reverse people with naloxone and so forth. And I asked him what happened, and he told me, and I said, yeah, but I want to know, like, what happened from the first guy that overdosed? And he said, the first guy? Well, the first couple of guys told the other people to come down to the Green. They had really good dope here. So in a way, there's an attraction to this edge of maximum drug experience, let's say.
Effect.
Yeah.
Right.
And Brian even said that people have been overdosing in the hospital parking lot so they could be rescued. Now, that's another thing we don't really talk about in our field, like the idea that we tell people they should carry naloxone, but who knows a case of somebody who's rescued themselves? Almost everyone will say, I was just dreaming, I was just floating, I was just thinking, and they won't rescue themselves. So the idea that all these people are carrying naloxone, that's not going to help very many people, or as many people as we thought. And so I do think that's kind of there was a paper that modeled with AI the number of people who you could be saved by co-prescribing naloxone. And I always objected to this because it was just based on this idea that somehow the person would know that they're going to die. Like, I've rescued people, and I'm sure you have too. And when they wake up, they don't ordinarily say even thank you. They go like, "What'd you do, doctor?"
They're not happy.
You ruined my high. So, like, how are they going to reverse themselves? So it was really well intentioned, but the change from the first wave changed the dose dimension, changed the safety of the use, changed the treatment efficacy, and then the this kind of Rube Goldberg approach. If like, oh, everybody's going to overdose, so we'll give everybody naloxone. It's not worked as intended, and I guess Jason could answer this the best. But when we looked at this in St. Louis, the average person had overdosed 8 times. I mean, we're not getting any new people.
Yeah, like having a previous overdose and reverse with naloxone increases the chances that you're going to overdose and not survive.
That's scary.
Yeah, and so like a lot of the like think about this. There's so many people dying. Let's say 110,000. Pick a number. It's as good as numbers you're going to find. Yeah. You go like, how can every year we have more than 100,000? Where are these people coming from? Like, these people are dead. Like, it must, like, we're refilling. I look at it like, because the treatment duration has not been logical. So if your assumption is, and we won't talk about the physician treatment data. The physician treatment data would say that detox and naltrexone and a comprehensive psychosocial treatment approach was excellent. But putting that aside, in the treatment model where it's MAT first, then you'd have to say, well, how long? And it's not unlike the GLP treatment. Like the day you stop taking the obesity medicine is the day you start gaining weight again. So if all you do is take an MAT, what changed between here and here? And really the data pretty much shows that your overdose risk after you stop is about what it was when you started. That's where treatment fits in. That's the missing piece. Where's prevention? Everybody made fun of Nancy Reagan and just say no, and there's some truth on all the sides, but when you look at it, 1,200 deaths maximum during the Just Say No per year. We're way over 100,000 every year. So the reinforcement of prevention doesn't have broad efficacy, but where it does work, it works forever.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
What's your thoughts about using the term poisoning versus overdose?
You know, I mean, it's my first blog. I got a message from someone that I shouldn't use the term addiction because I should change the blog to people who use drugs obsessively. So it's non-medicinal use of fentanyl is fentanyl use, misuse of fentanyl. Overdose can't be predicted because of individual differences in metabolism and tolerance and so forth. And to give people the false impression that somehow they can do something that a board-certified anesthesiologist can't do. Like, you're sitting in surgery and they give you opioids. They do the best they can. They're monitoring your respiration. They have an EKG on, but they got naloxone all over the place just in case. They're going to reverse you all the time to keep you safe. Self-administration, supporting a delusion of safety. I just don't think it's logical. So yeah, I agree that we should use language that's destigmatizing. but I don't think we should use language that pretends that we know more than we know.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, the article came out, I think, today in the New York Times about that, about these mothers that their sons, they're losing their kids and they're saying, hey, we want to call it poisoning. And obviously alcohol poisoning has been around for a while, but overdose is used quite a bit. And will it help, put more focus on the problem? If it does, I'd love to change the language, but because 100,000 a year, it's adding up. I mean, we're got to be close to 1 million people.
Oh, yeah.
In the last 6 years, X number of years since the opiate started.
It's hard to imagine that the change in language is as impactful as training more physicians about the disease of addiction. To me, that's impactful. It's hard to imagine that MAT. We don't want treatment to devolve into a vending machine.
Right.
So if we're just going to replace the medicine and not do anything else, why have a program? Why not have a vending machine with a AI and camera, and the person gets their medicine in a vending machine, and that's a distribution system. So I kind of separate in my mind addiction treatment, intervention, and comprehensive treatment from an automat or a vending machine approach. And I don't think we do anybody a favor by saying this is so easy that we can treat it in, like, name that tune. I can treat it in 2 beats or less. I think treatment's hard. I know I have to do something else, but I'll since a lot of your listeners are doctors, I'll throw this out. What is the underlying hypothesis for the treatment of opioid use disorder with opioid? What would you say?
Harm reduction.
So I say the theory, because again, I taught neuroanatomy for 40 years, is that people taking opioids induce an opioid deficiency. And so the treatment is opioids. Like, why are opioids so dangerous that we had to have all these regulations around use? You can't even get a fracture and get enough opioids. I had major surgery and they were giving me like so little opioids that I'm going like, because they said they're worried about addiction in a 75-year-old man. Come on now. Like, you know what I mean? My pleasure system isn't that intact. I do think we have almost have a self-fulfilling prophecy or theory where opioids cause dysfunction, maybe deficiency, replacement sustains that, and that's where I'm at. And I'm going to work on that.
That was so good.
Like, first of all, it's a little demoralizing to just be aware that we don't get permission to treat people long enough that the disease requires, right? So inappropriate treatment, which is kind of what a lot of us are forced to do, is ineffective. That doesn't mean treatment's ineffective.
Yeah, longer treatment works.
Thanks for joining us, Mark. What a pleasure.
Pleasure. What an honor.
No, thank you guys for your work. You're actually doing the treatment.
All right, Mark. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.